Summer is upon us. Do you want to stay cool and dry at night? Try bamboo sheets from CozyEarth.com. Not only do you get a good night's sleep and stay cool and dry, but also you get to save 21% off just by using our code at checkout. InfoGo. And they have a 100-night sleep trial, so it's a win-win. If you don't like them, send them back, but I promise you'll fall in love with them. And while you're over there, check out their socks. They have a whole line of apparel. And that's CozyEarth.com. Use our code InfoGo at checkout to save 21% off. Welcome to the podcast. I'm William.
And I'm Kat.
And that makes this, well, a dash of info.
The little things you want to know.
Are you really going to be watching the World Cup? You
I
just
can't
gonna,
make any promises.
so you're just going to follow the leaderboard?
Probably.
Okay. Well, so there's going to be a lot of different countries. They're going to be on the pitch battling for that number one spot.
So it's like war on the pitch with the ball?
Absolutely. And you know what? There was another war that sounds almost as ridiculous as that. The Pastry War of 1838. How do you like that?
I really was wondering where we were going with that.
Yeah. So that's a pretty good setup there, right?
Yes. Yes. But
You
you
want
say
to,
pastries? We are now worrying about pastries. Was it which was better?
you know what? Chocolate eclairs with a Coke.
I'm partial to Danishes.
Okay, you know what? We're gonna have to agree on this because I do love a good cheese Danish with a berry spread, maybe a blueberry spread,
Hmm.
but not the bear claw ones. Do not like those.
I don't like the bear claw ones either.
Okay, you know what? I'll give it a try. Since we did such a good job of setting it up. Here we go. So imagine this. A French pastry shop in Mexico City gets, well, ramsacked. Croissants are crushed. Croissants are crushed. Croissants.
Not the croissants.
Tarts are toppled. Oh man. This is breaking my heart already.
Sad.
Yeah. Eclairs, well, let's just say the eclairs never really fully recovered. Now you might think the response would be, well, a stern letter, maybe a fine, or at most a lawsuit. But no. France, well, it did something unthinkable. It declared war on Mexico over pastries.
Yes, pastries. So, how did a few ruined desserts lead to cannons, warships, and an international conflict? Why did one pastry chef's complaint matter so much that two nations went to war?
During this podcast, we're going to explore that very story of the pastry war of 1838. And let's be honest, it has equal parts of absurdity and fascination. And Kat and I, we're really going to dive into the political chaos, the national pride, and international diplomacy, all starting with something as simple as a, well, flaky croissant. Well, let's dive in. I guess you can kick us off in Mexico in 1838. What do you think?
Sounds good. So, to understand why France would go to war over pastries, we need to step back and look at Mexico in 1838. Mexico had won its independence from Spain less than 2 decades earlier, but the young nation was far from stable. Political power swung back and forth like a pendulum, one president replaced by another, often through coups and rebellions. The central government was weak. The local leaders often ignored federal authority.
On top of all of that, Mexico was struggling, well, economically. Debts from the War of Independence, well, they were starting to pile up. And the Treasury, well, let's just say that it was bare with dust. Civil unrest simmered in the streets, and foreign citizens, merchants, artisans, and investors sometimes found themselves caught in the chaos. Their property wasn't, well, always safe. And the Mexican government, it let's just say that it failed to compensate for the unsafe conditions of the foreign property.
So, France, like other European powers, was paying attention. Protecting its citizens abroad wasn't just about principle, it was about money and influence. Imagine that. French merchants and businesses, including pastry shops, were part of a growing network of trade and investment in Mexico.
And here's a little detail that really might surprise you. French pastry shops in Mexico weren't just bakeries, they were symbols of culture, status, and wealth. Damaging one wasn't just a minor crime. In French eyes, it was an attack on their prestige and economic interest. So when the pastry chef's complaint reached Paris, it was taken seriously enough to become a diplomatic incident and eventually, well, a war.
Not a war.
The eclairs must be saved.
So, now let's meet the person at the center of it all. A French pastry chef living in Mexico City. His shop was small but respected, and apparently it caught the attention of some Mexican officers, who, according to the chef, caused serious damage to his pastries and his property. Croissants crushed, tarts toppled, sugar spilled. It may sound petty, but to the French pastry chef, it was a major loss.
You know,
Baking isn't cheap.
no. And the sugar?
Oh,
Oh,
mm-mm.
I'm more concerned about the croissants and the tarts more than I am anything else.
Indeed.
Yeah. He did take his complaint to the French consul in Mexico City. And here's where things start to really get interesting. The consul didn't just sympathize, he forwarded the complaint all the way to the French government in Paris. And now the destruction of a few baked goods became a matter of national honor. But French love their pastries just about as much as I love their pastries.
I also love their pastries.
You know, I think I would go to war. I think I would. I would be willing to.
There are things that might take precedence before pastries for me.
Chocolate eclairs.
But if all was right in the world before pastries, I would go to war for pastries.
I think you and I should go to war over Coke and Pepsi and just see who wins.
I don't know. Pepsi has its naval fleet, or at least it used to.
You know what? Maybe we can get some fan mail and settle this debate once and for all.
Yes, yes.
Let's take a vote. If you're a Coke person, let us know. If you're a Pepsi person, let us know. You can hit us up on Facebook, fan mail, whatever.
France demanded that Mexico pay reparations, essentially to compensate the chef for his losses. But Mexico, dealing with political chaos, a fragile economy, and little interest in what seemed like a minor complaint from a foreigner, hesitated. They stalled. They negotiated. They argued over details. And as anyone who has ever dealt with bureaucracy knows, delays can escalate tension. In this case, what started as a complaint about ruined pastries spiraled into full-blown international incident. France, offended and impatient, decided that words weren't enough. Action was required, and so the stage was set for war. It's hard not to laugh at the idea. Armies and cannons mobilized over croissants. But as absurd as it sounds, this story reveals a lot about pride, politics, and how small incidents can ignite much larger conflicts.
With the pastry incident now in the hands of Paris, France sent an envoy to Mexico with a very clear message. Pay the damages and do it quickly. But Mexico wasn't exactly in a position to comply because remember, those coffers in their treasury was pretty empty.
They was slim.
Yeah, they were slim, slim. They were like, "Yo, bro, can you spot me five till maybe next month?"
Right.
And officials, they were juggling far bigger problems than, well, a pastry chef's ruined tarts. Although those were some pretty good tarts. I gotta say, if you're willing to go to war over them, they have to be extraordinary.
Indeed.
I really want to go and I want to go back in time. Can we do the Peabody and Sherman thing again and go back in time and try one of these eclairs?
Yes.
Hey, we'll be right back. We're going to take a small break and go back in time. Coke.
Pepsi.
Dang, those was.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
I came across big fork brands recently, and it's become one of those finds you actually want to tell people about, and you don't find that often. Okay. They're doing bacon sausage, plus these really solid pork jerky snacks and Chicago style sauces. Basically, upgrade anything you throw them on burgers, hot dogs, fries, throw it on there. It works.
But I bet it's packed full of junk.
Actually, it's made with clean ingredients and real care. That's small batch with no shortcuts, and people are obsessed with the flavor. You can go over to bigforkbrands.com, use our code INFOGO at checkout, and get 20% off anything on the site.
You can find the link and our code in the show notes. Really good chocolate eclairs, and they went well with my Coke.
Oh, it was really good with my Pepsi.
I know you was digging into that cheese Danish, but I really couldn't help. I'm sorry I ate your chocolate eclair. My
That's okay.
apologies.
That's
All right.
okay. There
Anyway,
was others to choose from. It's fine.
yeah. Well, I am all carved up now.
Must be carbed. So, as you can imagine, diplomacy broke down quickly. Letters were exchanged, demands were made. Mexico offered promises it couldn't keep, and France grew impatient. From the French perspective, this wasn't just about money, it was about national honor. Letting a foreign citizen's property be destroyed without consequences was a sign of weakness, and France was determined to assert its influence.
Meanwhile, in Mexico City, the locals, well, must have thought this whole situation was absurd. A few damaged pastries. Well, it had suddenly become the focal point of international politics. But to France, it was serious business. Pride, money, and influence. Well, it was all at stake, and negotiations alone just weren't enough to protect that.
As the stalemate continued, France made the decisive move and it sent warships to Mexican waters, blocking blockading ports and signaling that failure to meet demands could have serious consequences. What started as a minor property dispute was about to turn into an actual war. It was proof that sometimes diplomacy isn't enough when pride and pastries are involved.
Let's get into the war of it. France wasn't sending soldiers for a stroll. It sent warships, cannons, and troops to enforce its demands. The main target was the port of Veracruz, and this was a key port for trade, and it was really the gateway to Mexico City.
The Mexican forces, already stretched thin by political chaos, were no match for the French Navy. Cannons boomed, ships maneuvered, and the blockade was enforced. Despite the seriousness of the conflict, there was a strange element of absurdity. Here were soldiers and sailors engaged in military maneuvers all over a dispute that began with pastries.
I'm sorry. This one's more hilarious to me than the pig or the animals on trial. I'm sorry. It really is. Because you're going to take human lives now.
They could have just as easily sent the man some sugar and paid for it themselves, because I feel like it's way more expensive to start a war than it would be to just cover the losses.
I would agree with that. Maybe send some of their soldiers in there and help them roll the dough. I don't know.
Right. At the very least.
Yeah. Local citizens, well, they watched as the French ships arrived while the French officers insisted that justice had to be served, not for politics, not for territory, but for croissants and tarts and those chocolate eclairs that were like my mouth is still watering. They were so good. The French occupation of Veracruz was swift, really demonstrating the imbalance of power between the two nations.
Even so, the war was short. There were no massive battles or thousands of casualties. It was more of a show of force, a statement that France would protect its citizens and its honor, even if that meant waging war over desserts. Yet, for the Mexican government and people, the event was a stark reminder of their vulnerability on a world stage.
The pastry war may sound funny, and we've been making some jokes about it, but at the time, it was a very serious clash with real consequences, not just wrapped up in an almost unbelievable story of pastries and pride and chocolate eclairs.
Right. The and it didn't drag on for years. After a few months of blockade and minor skirmishes, Mexico realized it had little choice. The French forces were too strong, and the government was too weak to resist. In the end, Mexico agreed to pay reparations, not just to the pastry chef, but to the other French citizens whose property had been damaged. The payment was modest in the grand scheme of international conflicts, but it was enough to satisfy France and restore a sense of national honor.
Beyond the pastries and payments, well, the war really did reveal some deep truth. It exposed Mexico's political fragility and the economic struggles, really showing the world that the young nation was, well, it was vulnerable to foreign intervention. For France, it was a successful assertion of influence, proving that even minor incidents abroad, well, could be used to project power.
Uh, it's pretty crazy. I still feel like France should have just went ahead and paid them themselves. But
Mexico,
right,
yeah,
one or the other, really.
no, you
But
feel like Mexico should have went on and just paid the French baker and been done with it.
well, that too, either or.
Oh,
You
I
know what I
got
mean?
you.
Like, because France had to sail across the ocean.
Yeah, France could have just said, hey, you know what? It's probably going to cost us a great deal of money to send our army and some ships over to Mexico. Why don't we just reimburse them and then, hey, look, Mexico, just pay us back, okay?
Right, right.
But maybe it could have been that uncle or that brother-in-law that never keeps a job and is always trying to borrow money that never pays you back. So maybe France was like, you know what, bro, we're done with this. Not spotting you five no more. We're just gonna come and take your TV.
Right. Well, that's fair too. That's fair too. And yet, the story that survives today is not about political strategy or military maneuvers. It's the absurdity of the conflict itself. A war that began over obsessed. Really? Where did they even come from?
Well, we are obsessed with those eclairs and those danishes
Yes,
and those croissants. You know, they are a rememberable footnote in history, right?
they are. They
Yeah.
are. So, a war that had began over ruined croissants became a memorable footnote in history, reminding us that sometimes the smallest events can spiral into international incidents. The Pastry War may have been short and relatively bloodless, but it left a lasting legacy. A story so strange that it still captures imaginations nearly 2 centuries later.
Yeah, and we're really not making this up. This really happened. So, what can we take away from the pastry war on the surface? It's funny, and it made for a great episode. It was a war that started over croissants and tarts, chocolate eclairs, and cheese danishes, and it really sounds like something on the Bugs Bunny show. But there's more to it than just laughs.
It shows how pride, politics, and economics can turn even the smallest incident into a major conflict. A single pastry chef's complaint became a national issue because it touched on questions of honor, influence, and power. And for Mexico, it was a reminder that instability at home can leave a country exposed to outside forces.
So the pastry war of 1838, well, it's a lesson in how history doesn't always have to be serious to be meaningful. Sometimes the strangest stories reveal the clearest truth about human behavior, diplomacy, and the unpredictable ways the world works when it comes to pastry.
So, next time you enjoy a croissant, think of the soldiers, sailors, and diplomats whose actions once revolved around pastries. A war over desserts may sound ridiculous, but history has a funny way of reminding us that even the smallest things can have big consequences.
And that's the story of the pastry war, a tale that's equal parts absurd, fascinating, and, well, surprisingly insightful. Who knew pastries could start a war? History, it turns out, is always full of surprises like that cream filling.
I love peeling back the layers of strange history.
Yeah, kind of like, I mean, uh, this one to me has always been like, what? Why?
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean, to your point, I mean, the French could have just said, hey, you know what? It's going to cost us all of this to do this. I don't know.
and they had to have known that Mexico was a struggling country at the time as well. I mean, that couldn't have been some big secret.
Yeah. But at the same time, it was probably the uncle that kept borrowing money and was
Well,
like,
I'm sure it was,
I'm gonna pay you back, man.
given the problems at home.
I got you. I got this job lined up next week. I promise you I'm gonna hit you back
And then you find him outside the bar.
a month later.
Yeah,
And he's like, oh, and then you get stiff with the bar tab at that. And you're
right.
like, hey, what happened, Joey? Whoa.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna edit that out. You don't know Joey Lawrence, right? That was his thing back in the day was whoa.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Yeah. No, Joey Lawrence would never be outside of the bar. Dang, we're out of time. Anyway,
If you would like to support this podcast, tell a friend and help get the word out.
yeah, and if you like pastries, or if you just want to support the show, you can do so at Patreon or take advantage of some of our sponsors. Either way it goes, all of those links are in the show notes.
And as always, William and I want to thank you for listening.
If you just tuned in or if you've been with us from day one, thank you. You are what keeps us going.
You can join the Facebook group at Info on the Go
Over there, get to know us.
or ask us a question.
But whatever you're doing, stop now and hit that follow button wherever you're listening to this podcast.
Send us some fan mail using the link in the show notes or leave a review.
Tell us what kind of pastries you like. If you would like to, you can email Kat or myself directly at,
Info on the Go podcast at gmail.com.
and all of this is in the show notes. Till next time.
Stay curious.
You know, we really need a time machine on this show.
We do.
Yeah. I mean, if we're going to go back and eat pastries or we're going to go back and do, look at the salt mines and stuff, we got to get a time machine.
Yes. Yes.
Anyway. If your stomach's been off lately, like bloating, reflux, or just not feeling right, there's a simpler way to get back on track.
With Professor B's Digestive Aid, which is an all natural blend of pure honey and ancient apitherapy, a herb rooted in Roman tradition. You know how at least they had some things right, right? It's designed to gently support and balance your digestion.
No long ingredient list, no harsh additives, just two powerful, time tested ingredients working together. It's even the same formula used to help cancer patients manage digestive discomfort.
And right now, you can get an exclusive 10% off any product. Just use our code INFOGO at checkout.